everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today I will share with you the 4th card collaboration challenge with my bff Sintang Mayumi. This challenge is using the same stamp set to make 3 cards. Our stamp set this month is from Hero Art set called Daisy and Bugs. This is a very pretty stamp set with one big daisy here, and then the leaves and stem and some bugs, and of course the sentiments. It also has a coordinating die, which makes it so convenient to use for card making. So I hope you'll enjoy this video. If you have any questions about anything or things that I use in this video, please just leave a comment down below and I will answer as soon as possible. So let's get started. For card number 1, I have a piece of black A2 size cardstock here. I have the Versamark ink and I will use the big daisy image. But first, with my embossing bag, I prep the panel before stamping the flower all over. Then I poured the gold embossing powder from Ranger over the ink image. Then with my heat gun, I will heat set this until melted and glossy. Now to color my images, I will be using my Prima metallic watercolor paints. Actually, this was inspired by my crafty BFF Sintang Mayumi using this technique on one of her tutorials. So here, I just colored the flowers and chose the colors randomly. I sped this up so it won't bore you watching me color. I just put down the watercolor, then blend it with my paintbrush and water. After coloring all the images, I am using a scalloped rectangle die from CC Designs using 2 of the smaller dies. The bigger one, I will die cut a vellum piece that I will use as mat. Then I will stamp a sentiment from the same stamp set, the words "Hello Lovely," on a piece of black cardstock using gold embossing powder again. Then I will heat set it. Then after I heat set this one, I will use the smallest rectangle scallop die to die cut the sentiment. Now using my Tim Holtz trimmer, I trimmed this panel just a little bit on all sides just so I can have it matte on my craft card base that measures 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. Now I can adhere my vellum piece on my watercolored panel using a double-sided tape. Then here I have another strip of vellum in gold and I will use this to wrap it around the panel to add a focal point in the middle where the sentiment is. Now I'm just adding some foam tape to the back of the sentiment strip that I also heat embossed in gold, and I will put it on top of the vellum piece. Now using my liquid glue, I am just adhering my finished panel to my card base. Finally, from my stash, I have some Simon Says stamp gold sequins that I will add on my card. I just picked some different sizes of sequins and put it all over using my liquid glue. At this point, I felt that my card is still lacking something, so I took my gold gel pen and quickly put dots all over the black panel. This technique was inspired by May Park, who I truly admire in card making. This technique is called stippling. And that finally finished my card number 1. For card number 2, I have a Canson XL watercolor cardstock here, and I will be stamping the images including the stems and the leaves with VersaFine Onyx Black ink. I will stamp it a couple of times to get good impressions. This time, I stamp more than one flower since I will be using more of the images on my second card. Then I emboss these images with clear embossing powder and again heat set it until it's glossy and melted. To color these images, I will be using my Arteza markers. I am really loving these markers. I chose some pinks, purples, and yellows. I won't be showing you how I colored each of them, but I just did some simple coloring using about 2 to 3 colors. I'm just putting some color down and then blending it with water or using a lighter shade of marker. Then I will use the coordinating dies to cut all my colored images. And here I will just show you that I colored and cut a lot of the daisies and the stems and the leaves to use on this card. And then I have this 6x6 paper pad by Jen Hadfield. I chose the gray, black, white plaid paper, and using the rectangle die from Lawn Fawn, I cut this panel for my background. Then I also have this Bristol paper cardstock, and I'm using a die set called Pocket Stitch from Richard Garay. I love this die set so much that I can customize any style of a jeans pocket. So here I am just lining up the die to create the stitch lines on the jean pocket. And here's another die that I will use to make it more realistic. So to make it really looking like a jean pocket, I am using Distress Oxide inks. First, I am using Mermaid Lagoon, using my blending tool, going lightly from the outside going in. And to make it a little darker, I will also use Faded Jeans. And finally, I will also use Black Suit along the edges. I will just go back and forth with the 3 colors, blending them till I get the color that I want. Then I have this Altenew die that says Thinking of You that I will be using to die cut this scrap of black cardstock. I will only be using the word you. So here I'm just using my Fiskars scissors to trim out the rest of the sentiments that I won't be using. So now I'm ready to assemble my card. I sped this up because I was moving around the images a lot and fidgeting on all the colored pieces until I am finally happy with the placement. This next technique I got from Jennifer Maguire. Using a piece of present seal, I will press it down to the colored pieces and making sure it all clings to the plastic sheet. Then I will flip it over and add foam tape and glue at the back. It's a great technique and the best way to make sure the placement will be exactly where I want it to be. Then I made sure all the images are adhered to my pattern paper, pressing them all down firmly. Then I slowly peeled off the plastic. Here I just have some of the leaves that were hanging, so I'll just put some liquid glue to adhere them. Now using another stamp set from Hero Arts called Hello, I will just get the stamp set that says You Brighten My Day. But since I will be using the die cut U that I cut earlier, I will cover the word U with a washi tape and ink up the sentiment with Versamark ink and emboss it with white embossing powder. And heat set this with my heat gun. Then I will just die cut this sentiment using an everyday sentiment banner die from Lawn Fun. I also use Spectrum Noir clear sparkling pen to the word U to give it some shimmer. Then I cut the sentiment strip and attach it to the word U. I put some foam tape at the back of the sentiment since the whole jean pocket piece is also foam mounted. Then I will attach it to the panel using a liquid glue. Of course, the more shimmer, the better, right? So I added some more shimmer to the flowers with my sparkling pen. Then I have this A2 size white top folding card base that I will use for this finished card. I will just trim some parts of the daisies that are hanging on the sides. Then finally, I have this Recollections brand of enamel dots that I want to use to add more dimension to my design. I put all three colors, the gray, the ivory, and the black, and it exactly matches the color scheme of my background panel. And my card is finished. This is my card number 2. For card number 3, I am using this Miss Sparkle & Co. wood grain pattern paper and I'm choosing the purplish color. I'm cutting it with my Lawn Fawn large stitch rectangle die. Then I have this CC Designs scallop rectangle die set and I will use the second largest die. I will die cut a white Nina 80-pound cardstock. Then with the second smallest die from the same set, I will die cut the middle part of this white panel. I will be putting tape so it won't shift when I run it through my die cutting machine. So here are my pre-colored images ready for use. I will be using the yellow daisy this time. So this time I will be making a simple shaker card. So I have this acetate here that I'm cutting for my window using my scissors. Then I will tape it down with a strong double-sided tape on the back of the white panel. Then using a sentiment from a Simon Says stamp set that says, "So happy you're my friend," I will use VersaFine Onyx Black ink and stamp it on the bottom portion of my panel. I will emboss this again with clear embossing powder, but I did prep it with my embossing bag first to prevent stray or loose powder. Then I will heat set this with my heat gun, but being careful not to warp or melt the acetate. So now I'm ready to add my shaker elements. I have these containers of sequins here and some small beads that I want to use. But first, I have to make a border around the window acetate using doubled foam tape where I will be putting my sequins and beads. Here, I'm just making sure that there are no gaps between the foam tapes so the beads and the sequins will be contained in the shaker window. So here, I chose different colors of beads and sequins. I did add some more, and I'm being generous since my window acetate area for the shaker card is rather big. I also swipe the area and the acetate window with my embossing tool so it will minimize static and the beads and sequins can freely shake and will not cling to the area. After I put all the sequins and the beads in the middle part of the wood grain pattern paper, I am now removing the backing of the foam tapes and adhere it on the pattern paper. And the shaker part is done. All I have left to do is attach the colored daisy on the side of the acetate window. Now using my Tombow liquid glue, I will just attach the flower and making sure not to cover the shaker window area. I will also add the branch and a leaf and put an acrylic block on top till it dries. Now I have a white A2 size top folding card base here again to use for this card. And of course, for final touch, I added some shimmer again on the daisy using my Spectrum Noir sparkling pen. And this finishes off card number 3. So here are the 3 cards again that I made for this month's challenge. I want to know which card is your favorite in the comment section below. I hope you enjoyed watching and learned a few things from it. Please go on over to Sintang Mayumi's channel if you haven't done so to see her take on this month's challenge. Thank you all for watching and I hope to see you again soon. Bye!